Foreign Minister of Israel, Avigdor Lieberman, the mayor of the city, Nir Barkat, the head of Keren Hayesod, Woody Zandberg, the great supporter of Jewish education, Lev Leviv. I'm sure there are, I don't see from here, but I'm sure there are many distinguished, outstanding people in this hall. We all are grateful to you, Mr. President, for bringing so many best thinkers of the world in Jerusalem to discuss the future. Thank you. Dear friends, I participated in some of the panels. I was on the other panels. I heard about some other panels. Always it was mutual effort to see how the future will look in 30 years. And I believe that in order to understand it better, we have to go back 30 years ago and to remind ourselves how we thought about our future in 30 years. For me, if I go back 30 years, I go to my university, my alma mater, which of course is Soviet prison. And in that Soviet prison, I remember how 30 years ago, you're sharing the cells with Armenian, Lithuanian, Ukrainian nationalists who were fighting for the freedom of their people, with the human rights activists from Moscow and other places, with religious activists, Christians and Muslims and Jews. And we are discussing the future. And I have to say that we Jews were always in the center of kind of admiration or jealousy, but a very positive jealousy. Our friends were telling to us, you for sure will be free. Look, all the world is talking about you. All the Jews of the world are demonstrating for you. You're lucky, and we are not. And we say that, well, you also have big diaspora, Lithuanians, Armenians, Ukrainians, huge diaspora in Washington and Paris, an important place of the world. Make them speak. They say, well, we cannot. There is something special about you Jews. You always take care of your own. And I have to say that this phrase, which often was a phrase of anti-Semites in the Soviet Union, was finally a great compliment. They were really full of admiration how we Jews are taking care of our own. In fact, I have to say, in these days I think about it very often because every day we hear about awful things from Syria. Awful things. And of course we all agree and proud that Elie Wiesel raised his voice, and that all these human rights organizations are raising this voice. And the United Nations finally is working, and Kofi Annan is speaking, and Arab League is talking. But where are the millions and hundreds of millions of Arabs and Muslims demonstrating in solidarity with their people? Does it mean, does the root identity, solidarity, means only that you're united in the hatred towards your enemies? Or you're thinking about your own, first of all? And the second thing which comes to me to think about when I go back 30 years, think about our debate about the future from Soviet prison. I remember a hot debate between Russian nationalists and Ukrainian nationalists. And these Russian nationalists were saying to these Ukrainian nationalists, so tell us frankly, what you prefer? You prefer to have independent Ukraine as a dictatorship under some new Getman, or you prefer to have democratic Ukraine as part of new democratic Russia? And when I tried to say, but why he has to choose, I was told by both, well, you don't have a voice here. You are in a privileged situation. You're lucky. Israel is not part of the Soviet Union. So you don't have this problem to choose. But of course I had this problem to choose. I had this problem to choose simply not because of Israel. Thanks God, I knew, as we all know, that Israel, in order to succeed in its unique mission of gathering exiles, has to be Jewish and democratic. But I had to choose because I, as every young Jew then and today, is facing this question. Are you for the rights of all the world, for freedom of all the world, or you are only for your own? I knew that it is wrong to choose. I knew, as the one who came to the struggle for human rights from the first discovering my identity, discovering my connection with history, people, and the state of Israel, I found strength to fight for all this. But if we will look what has happened with the world in these 30 years, the world disagrees with us. The world is making different choice. Because what happened, Soviet Union fell. Thanks God, we are all more free. But in one part of the world, on our left or right, depends, emerges the world of freedom without identity. On the other hand, the world which chooses identity without freedom. And so many intellectual leaders and less intellectual leaders in these worlds are saying that in order to strengthen our freedom, we have to erase identities, religion, nationality, border. And on the other hand, we hear the voice of the leader that freedom and democracy, it's all for rich and fed. We need identity. We need strong, deep, passionate identity. And let's not confuse ourselves with freedom. And in the middle between these two worlds, geographically in the middle, but also spiritually, there is a small country, Israel, which continues the great tradition of Jewish people who got their freedom and their identity together. We left Egypt, we became people. We became free and became people. And we continue for 1,000 years the struggle and our insistence that identity and freedom goes together. Yes, in this world today, we will be Jewish and democratic state. And if I come to our Jewish challenges, we have two major challenges. Assimilation, shrinking of our communities, weakening of our people in size, on one hand, and the legitimization of the state of Israel, on the other. Weakening from inside, and the attempts of our enemies to weaken, to undermine, to diminish the importance of the state of Israel and the family of the people. And facing these two challenges, Israel and Jewish people discovered, again, how much they need one another in this struggle. Jews of diaspora discovered that that they cannot simply strengthen their identity, guarantee their survival, their future, without strong connection with Israel. And Israel discovers that in this struggle against our enemies, we don't have better partners than Jewish people. And so this encounter is extremely important and extremely fruitful. And Jewish Agency sees as its main aim to bring as many Jews as possible to Israel and as much of Israel as possible to Jewish people. We are doing it in our programs of Aliyah, of those 20,000 who are making Aliyah. We are doing it in tens of thousands coming for different programs of Israeli experience. We are doing it through our shlichim in the campuses and universities and thousands in the summer camps and the Jewish communities. We are doing it in our new project of Tikkun Olam, where the centers in Ethiopia and India and later in many other countries, and Jews from Israel and Jews from diaspora will work together at the same time, will learn together. That the passion for Tikkun Olam is coming not from the passion for assimilation, but from going back to our Jewish roots and Jewish tradition. And this dialogue is extremely important. But sometimes it's not easy, this dialogue between Jews of diaspora and the state of Israel. Sometimes we hear these strident voices. But nevertheless, every step which is done to bring us together is very important. That's why I want again to express our deep appreciation to the Israeli government for their decision to recognize the contribution and to support spiritual leaders of reformed and conservative communities working in Israel. And the last point, I am shown that my time went out. I'll try to be very short with the last point. Just when we are speaking about this extreme importance of meeting between Israel and Jewish people and how good it is for Jewish people, suddenly we hear a new voice. this new dialogue, new debate, which was also today on the panels, that maybe it's not good for young liberal Jews, and majority of American Jews, we are told, are young liberal Jews. It's not good for them to come for a long experience to Israel. Because if the policy of Israeli government is not liberal enough, or if it is not viewed as liberal enough, or it's presented as not liberal enough, then liberal Jews will not go with this. They will disengage themselves from Israel. Zionism goes in one direction, and liberal Judaism goes in the other direction. Well, I know it's absolutely wrong statistically. Just now we got new statistics which prove why it is wrong. But because the one who is dealing every day with young Jews who are coming to Israel and spending essential time here, in the last month I initiated meetings with dozens and dozens of young Jews who came on Masa programs, our programs of bringing young Jews for a few months, up to 1 year, to work. And I had personal conversations, one-on-one of them. And said, yes, many of them define themselves as liberals. They said defined because liberal in my days meant something different. Liberal in my days meant that you're against dictatorships. Today, some liberals are best friends of dictators, but that's something different. I had conversation with them, and they say how they support welfare system, how they want to close gaps, how they're against religion involved in the state, how they are for gay marriages and so on. They say, okay, now let's discuss what Israel gave to you. You're here now 3, 4, 5, 6 months. And you know their answers are absolutely the same as the answers of those who think that we are not enough Jewish, that we are giving too much to Palestinians, those who don't define themselves as illiberals and define themselves as conservatives. The answer is the same. Here we found that we have family. As they say, here we are loved not for our views, but for being part of the family. As one girl told me, you know, in America, when they say to me, nice to meet you, it means nothing. Here, when the taxi driver is interrogating me about when my grandparents came to America and why I was so stupid that I'm here and what is. And after all this conversation, he says, and please really have a very good Shabbat. I see he means it. I see he loves me. And the other said, you know, after all these months, I'm so angry on this and this and this. I'll be fighting against this religion and state connection. And then she said, but now I go to my community. I am so devoted to Israel. I'll be fighting for Israel. I said, why? Why are you so devoted? She said, because I discovered that Israel is about many things, but first of all, it's about myself. And that's the secret. That's the secret that all these young who are religious and non-religious, who are liberals, who are conservatives, they all discover their family. They all discover this deep, through Israel, their connection to their history, to their roots, to their people, and to this country. And that's what makes them strong. And that's what our critics don't understand. These critics think that Israel is kind of Kinyan Hitzani, it's something external, something that, okay, it's a good thing. If it is popular, I love it. If it's not popular, I'll distance myself from this. It's not like this. Israel is about your identity, it's about your family, it's about your connection. And that's why it makes us stronger for our own aims and for building this world. And that is why, if you think in 30 years from now, we know, yes, there will be a world with borders, with nations, with religions, with families. But the people who will be there inside these nations will be Am Havshi Barso, will be free people. And they'll be strengthened in their struggle for freedom by their identity. And the country and the people who are showing the example to the world why it is important and how to do it is Jewish people and the state of Israel. Thank you.